You know, when you hear the word forensics, what comes to mind? Probably fingerprints, right? Or maybe DNA. But these days, almost every single investigation has this invisible layer. We're talking about digital evidence. And trust me, the stories it can tell are way more complex than anything you'll see in a Hollywood movie. So let's dive in.
And I mean, think about it. We're talking about everything from terrorism and homicide to massive data breaches that affect millions. Child exploitation, corporate espionage, fraud. Every single one of these crimes, at its core, now leaves a digital trail. The computers, the phones, the networks, those are the new crime scenes. They're where all the secrets are hidden. Okay, but here's the huge catch. A muddy footprint is physical. You can rope it off. Digital evidence? It can be gone. Poof, with a single click. It's so fragile. And it gets worse. Criminals aren't just passively hoping we don't find the evidence. They're actively building what we call anti-forensic tools. This is software made for one reason, and one reason only: to wipe hard drives, to encrypt everything, to completely destroy the clues investigators are desperately trying to find. So that leads us right into our first big topic, the digital crime scene. It's a world built on these super fragile clues, where every single second is critical. And this is probably what you're thinking right now, right? If this evidence can be changed or deleted or even faked so easily, how on earth can we ever trust it? How can you possibly build a court case on something that feels like it could just vanish?
Well, there's an answer. It's a core principle. Really, it's the golden rule that makes this entire field work. It's a concept called forensic soundness.
Forensic soundness is everything. It's the foundation of the whole profession, and it really just boils down to proving two things. Number one, the evidence you have is authentic, and number two, nothing has been done to change it since you collected it. And how do you prove that? Documentation. Rigorous, obsessive, document every single step you take kind of documentation.
And this is where the ideal clashes with reality. You know, in a perfect world, you'd preserve everything and change nothing. It's like putting a murder weapon in an evidence bag. Don't touch it. But with computers, that's literally impossible. Just turning a machine on changes thousands of files. So the real-world rule has to be different. It becomes, change as little as you absolutely have to and document everything you do.
Okay, so we have this golden rule of forensic soundness. With that as our guide, let's pull back the curtain and see how investigators actually decode this stuff. What's in their toolkit?
All right, and you might be surprised, but the first tool, the most important one, it isn't some fancy piece of software. It's a mindset. It's the scientific method. An investigator's job is to be a neutral finder of fact. They can't take sides. They form a hypothesis about what happened, and then, and this is the critical part, they do everything they can to disprove their own theory. That's how you know your conclusions are solid.
Here's something else that's really important to get. An investigator almost never looks at the raw ones and zeros. It's just not practical. Instead, they're looking at a translation of that data, provided by their software tools. Think of it like a language translator. And that's where things can get tricky, because what if the translator, the software tool, has a bug? What if it's misinterpreting the data? It can completely change what you see. And this right here is a perfect and kind of scary example of that. Look at this. On the right, you see what an older forensic tool shows. It completely misses a folder called TK because of a bug. But on the left, a newer, updated tool sees it clear as day. Now just imagine, what if that folder held the smoking gun for an entire case? It would be totally invisible, just because of the tool the investigator was using. So to get around problems like that, experts have to look at the evidence in two totally different ways, physically and logically. I love this analogy. Think of a library. The logical view is like the library's card catalog. It tells you where everything should be, all neat and organized into files and folders. But the physical view? That's like actually walking down the aisles and looking at the raw data on the shelves. You might find a book that was misshelved or a page torn out, stuff the catalog would never tell you about. And here's what that looks like in real life. On the left, that's the physical view from a phone. It just looks like a jumbled mess of data, right? But on the right, the software gives us the logical view. And suddenly, that same exact data is organized into readable text messages. This is why you need both. A deleted text message might be gone from the logical view, but fragments of it could still be sitting there, waiting to be found in that physical jumble of data.
This all feeds into a concept called evidence dynamics, which is a fancy way of saying that evidence is almost never pristine. An investigator never gets to the digital crime scene first.
A well-meaning IT guy might try to fix things and accidentally wipe logs. The suspect is obviously going to try to cover their tracks. Heck, even the victim might delete painful emails. All these things change the evidence, and the investigator has to be able to figure out what happened after the crime.
Because at the end of the day, all this super technical work, it isn't just about finding files. It's about being a storyteller. The ultimate goal is to reconstruct the crime and build a clear, coherent narrative of what actually went down.
And this is why all of this matters so much. Let's talk about a real case. In 2005, a young woman named Josie Phyllis Brown, just 27 years old, vanished. The case went cold. But then, digital forensics experts got involved, and they started to piece together the last few hours of her life, bit by digital bit. And the trail they uncovered, it led them straight to her killer.
So how'd they do it? Well, by digging into cell phone records, they proved the suspect was miles away from where he claimed to be in his alibi. But here's the kicker. They also found a fake email. He had sent it to her account after she was already dead, trying to create a false trail. It was a desperate mistake. The digital evidence told the true story that he tried so hard to bury.
To build a story like that, investigators basically use a three-pronged attack. First, there's relational analysis, just asking who talked to whom. Second, functional analysis. How did the technology itself actually work? And finally, temporal analysis, putting it all on a timeline. When did each event happen, down to the second?
And all of this brings us to where we are now, and what's next. Because as fast as forensic science is moving, the bad guys are moving faster. Technology is getting more and more complex. It's truly an endless chase.
I mean, the hurdles investigators face today are just massive. Evidence isn't on one computer anymore, it's scattered across servers all over the globe. We've got powerful encryption that can lock away secrets, maybe forever. The sheer volume of data is almost unimaginable. And some of the most critical evidence, like what's happening on a network, might only exist for a fraction of a second before it's gone.
So that leaves us with one final and pretty heavy question. As our world gets more digital, as criminals get smarter, and as things like encryption become standard, can the digital detectives really keep up? In this constant, high-stakes game of cat and mouse, who's going to win?